Hello and welcome back to the Sip and Knit podcast. My name is Sarah of Sarah Curry Knits, and this is another episode. I'm not going to deign to guess which one. I think we're on like 12 or 13, give or take. And last week was a little bit of a different video. I did a what I knit in a week. I sort of took inspiration from like a what I eat in a week video of like lifestyle vlogger side of YouTube. And it was a lot of fun, and I got some pretty good feedback in the comments of that video suggesting that it was fun for those who watched as well. This is a standard sit down, talk about my knitting style podcast. It's a very gloomy day, so I've lost quite a bit of daylight. I have more lights on than I normally do, so we might be in a little bit of like artificial lighting territory, but we're doing it anyway. And what I have to drink today is a beer. It's Saturday when I'm filming, so we've spent the day at the farmer's market, and then we got sushi for lunch, and we had a beer with sushi, so I'm just like riding that theme. And this, I haven't even taken a sip of it yet, so let's try it. Ooh. It's really yummy. So this is Fieldhouse Brewing, which I believe is local. I'm gonna assume. And when I say local, I'm on Vancouver Island in British Columbia. And it's a saison, sure, with chamomile and elderflower. And that's what the label looks like. Our liquor stores tend to sell a lot of these larger 650-ish milliliter bottles of beer, which are nice because you can split it between two people and you each get to try kind of like a new like brewery or something like that. So it's a little bit more than like a tall can, but it's a little easier to share that way. And you feel like, you know, you get to try kind of what that brewery is about. So we tend to do a couple every time we go pick up some alcohol from the liquor store. So that's that. We've got not a whole lot to talk about today. If you watched the last video, you know that I've been working on the Stephen West Mystery Knit Along pretty monogamously for the past 3 weeks. I have thoughts about that, and I have thoughts about what I've been knitting on. So let's jump right into it. We have no finished objects today. I'll talk about what I'm wearing, and then we'll move on in. Okay, so like I said, Stephen West Mystery Knit Along, that's what we're going to talk about mostly today. But I will start with what I'm wearing. I almost forgot. I will not forget. So this is the, oh no, oat, not the, just oat. It's the oat sweater, like oatmeal, O-A-T, oat sweater by This Bird Knits. It is a size inclusive pattern up to 60 to 62 inch bust. It might even be more than that, depending on what the recommended ease is. If memory serves, and I've done a video where I've talked about this in depth, so you can go back a few videos and find that, but if memory serves correctly, I knit the 4th size. It's a DK weight held with mohair, so I did 100% superwash merino swish DK from Knit Picks, and then I did drops mohair, like their kid silk, in the color number 7. It's just their pale blue. It is this one here. So it's the pale blue. I still have I bought 5 balls of this. I only used 3 and a bit, which seems kind of wild. So it's very cost effective, I guess, in that sense. It's a 3/4 length sleeve. I did have to add some length so that it wasn't elbow length on me. And there's this really pretty, what would you call that? Eyelet lace situation. I knit it, I would say, to hip length, so not cropped, not full length, and it does have some ease on me, quite a bit actually, probably 10 inches, which is nice. It's very cozy. My favorite thing about this sweater is the neckline. It is shaped flat before you join in the round, so that you get this really nice space for your neck, which is great. And the pickup is very simple and straightforward and explained well in the pattern. So yeah, I really enjoy this. I did looks like a sewn tubular on all of my hems and cuffs, which is bold. Look at me go. I was really finishing my sweaters well at that time, apparently. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I'm like, absolutely not. I could not be asked. Apparently I could be that day. All right, the chair that I'm in is like, I can feel it. It's like slowly sinking. I put it up to a little bit higher than it normally is, but it's like slowly sinking back down to where it wants to be, which is fine. Okay, let's talk about the MKAL. Come on, chair, just go where you want to go. Okay, we're talking about the MKAL. So, talked about this before, talked about it in last week's video extensively. I am using Life in the Long Grass Fine Sock for all three of my colors. It is a 75% superwash merino and 25% nylon. My main color is the dark color. It's called Dark Truffle. My accent color is the gold and it's called Druid. And the blue is my contrast, and I cannot read the label, so I do not know the name of that color. Icicle, something similar like that. Okay, so there's a lot of dog hair on this. That's just what it is. That's just true of all of my knits. So this is about where I'm at. I am just finishing clue 2. You'll see that I'm still binding off. I am 90% sure that I'm going to be frogging this. It's just not for me. If you follow me on Instagram, you will have seen, I'm just like looking at it, I'm like contemplating, and there are parts of it that I think are very pretty. Like I really like the cable pattern. And I think that my yarn in this cable pattern looks really beautiful. And so it's things like that where I go, maybe I just make something with this yarn that I will like more, because the yarn is beautiful. It really is. It's special. I got it while I was in Ireland. All good things. All things that make me go, oh, I'd really like something out of that yarn. And then I think about it a little bit harder and I go, well, I could just make something that's not this shawl. So let's talk about that a little bit. I think the reason I feel this way, put it up in all its glory. I think the reason I feel this way about this shawl, there's like a few reasons. I think the main is this texture is very innovative and was cool to knit and all the things, but it's quite hefty. Like there's a lot of yarn in these braids, and so like the weight of it, I feel like takes away from what I think shawls are, / what I gravitate towards them for, is that they're like light and airy and like super soft, flowy layering pieces. And this feels weighty and graphic and chunky in a way that is not my style. And that is ultimately kind of where I'm landing on this, is that it's just not my style. And that's okay. I think I got swept up in the, like, everyone's doing it and so I should too kind of mindset, which is pretty antithetical to everything that I've really kind of based my knitting on. And I will say, and definitely like this podcast, right? Like I started this podcast because I wasn't knitting the cool pattern that everyone else was knitting ever. I wasn't knitting, well, I was knitting all the time, but I was like taking breaks to do things that were like not going to be super quick. I like to knit fingering weight garments. That takes time. You know, all these things that were just like very much, I don't know, slow. Like my knitting practice is a slow one, and I've been okay with that. And this is not that, right? Like you get a clue of a ton of knitting and you have 1 week until the next clue comes out, and then it's a ton of knitting again. The third clue, I'll hand it to him, was not a lot of knitting, so it was a good catch-up week. But then you're like looking at it like, I have no idea what that's going to look like at the end of it. So then you're like, well, I guess I'll do it. And then the fourth week comes around, and I don't want to be like, unpopular opinion, like whatever. It's just an opinion that I have about it. I don't like it. I don't think it looks good. It is not my style. that doesn't mean that on other people and in other yarn and with other people's style that it won't look great, because I'm sure that I will see some finished objects of this shawl on some people and go, wow, that's amazing. Not for me though. And I think I've just learned a lesson here. I think I've learned that like mystery yarn intrigues me because I can find a way to work with pretty much any color. I can put it into sock project, I can give it away, you know, yarn colors and like dye styles and stuff. That is not intimidating to me. I will figure out a way to make that work. Things that I'm putting 5 whole skeins of hand dyed yarn into, probably not a mystery. Probably I want to know what that looks like. So I think probably the next time I show up here to talk about my knitting, that will likely be frogged. Will I have cast it on into something new right away? Also probably not. The yarn will probably stay caked up. I'll probably look at it, I'll squish it, I'll have a chat with it. We'll kind of come to a conclusion together on what it would like to be. And that's where we're at with that. I was speaking to some folks on Instagram, like I said, I posted on my stories, dramatically, woe is me, drama day, about how I didn't like the shawl. And a lot of folks were like, some were with me, some were like, oh, I'm sorry, like you had that experience, etc. And like one, I think really important conversation I had with B of the Maker B podcast and Instagram is they were like, listen, we craft for ways that like we don't even really understand. And the fact that you're having an emotional reaction to something is okay. We put a lot of time and effort into these things, and sometimes when they don't work out, that's a big old bummer, and we're allowed to be sad about that. Because I was like almost like being rude to myself and being like, oh, it's just a shawl, like why do I care so much? And they were very kind to remind me that I care so much because it matters. So that's okay, that's just what it is. Moving on to things that I care about quite a lot and they are working out for me, and that's been a source of joy, are these socks. So these are my Choose Your Own Adventurer, I think. Choose Your Own Adventurer, a mouthful, sock. But the reason for that is you're choosing your adventurer in that you're choosing your D&D class to stick on the sock. So I'm almost done. I'm going to do like 2 more rounds of ribbing and then I'm going to bind off. But these are them. So I chose to do the wizard class chart. And this is the chart on the back. And then the toe chart is delightful. I could do the whole sock in that chart. It's just like really intuitive and fun. And yeah, I mean, I think the number of classes in D&D is like a dozen. So there's like a dozen different charts that you can put on. There's 4 or 5 different circumference sizes for the foot, 4 different size colorwork charts, and 3 or 4 gusset sizes. So what I mean by gusset is like if your calf grows in width from your ankle, you can add a gusset, so a triangle that goes like this up the back of the sock to give you width. Someone who did that really successfully is May Green. I hope that she'll be posting photos of the sock, so I'll put her Instagram down below and hopefully there's some photos of that. But I think that Harper intends to like put tester photos on the project page or like the pattern page so you can see what I mean. But overall, the number of customization options for you, I highly recommend it. Like would knit a pair for every one of my D&D players, and I play in like 4 different campaigns. Like these are so good and very addicting. I find that color work hurts my hands more than other knitting does, so I tend to have to take breaks. So it's not like I knit socks a lot, and these are not socks that I could just like once a month I'd break out a pair of colorwork socks because my hands wouldn't be able to do it. But like once a year, I could probably justify a pair of these. So yeah, very exciting stuff. I did only get a 50 gram of each of the yarn, and I don't think I'm going to have enough for like my second size because I forget that I never knit a leg this long. So I was like, oh yeah, like 50-50, I'll have more than enough. That's for socks with this tall of a leg, not triple that. So lesson learned there, but this is Lang Jowl, I think, Jawоll. Their color numbers, not names, but yeah, these are the two. I recently learned it's a Corriedale and polyamide, so that's kind of cool. And my local yarn store just started carrying it, so I can go see if they have these colors, and if they don't have these colors, I'll do the same chart, but like mismatch colors, which sounds really fun. So yeah, lots of options there, but highly recommend. This is the kind of like fun and graphic I like in my knitting life because it's like small and unobtrusive, and I'm a fan. So these are turning out really well. They're almost done. And by they're almost done, I mean one is almost done. This is a hat that I'm making. And last podcast, I was like to my friend through the screen, I was like, if you want this hat, and she was like, I want that hat. So this is now affectionately Mary's hat. And I taught my partner how to knit. I was like sitting on the couch next to her and I was like, do you want to learn how to do a stitch? And she's like, I guess you can teach me how to do a stitch. And yeah, I successfully got her to do it. She did like a round and a half all by herself, and she only made 2 mistakes. She twisted one stitch and she like did an extra yarn over where there didn't need to be yarn over, and otherwise it was beautiful. So she was all nervous that she wasn't going to be good at it, and I was like, it's impossible to be bad knitting. You're just a beginner, like it's fine. And yeah, maybe this is her project now. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, this is just in an Opus merino and alpaca in a yellow color, like a mustard yellow. And it's a Musselburgh hat, a size adult medium. So that's what that is. I find Musselburgh hats similar to vanilla socks. Everyone's knit dozens. If they've knit that pattern, they've knit more than one, and I don't really have to say much about it. If you haven't knit the Musselburgh and you're curious, the link will be down below for the Ravelry. It's great. It is an awesome, if you don't knit socks but you have a lot of single skeins of like fingering to sport weight yarn, that's the pattern for you. I highly recommend. All right, final project that I wanted to talk about. And I want to preface this by saying, I'm not a blanket knitter. However, I was tasked with putting together a Scrappy swap for an advent. So I have a box of yarn over there, but I'm not going to share it. I don't think the person that I'm sending this yarn to watches my podcast. But at the same time, on the off chance that she decides to open this video, I don't want to ruin the surprise for her. But just know that I'm part of like an advent swap with like 10 other people that I think some of them are podcasters, some of them are not, what have you. But the idea is just that you take your fingering weight leftovers and make like between 10 and 20 gram balls, and someone else does that for you. And I'm not sending my yarn to the same person who's sending it to me, if that makes sense. Like I already received mine. It's sitting over there. We're going to talk about it in December. That's that. But yeah, so I've been putting it together, and in putting this like, 24 minis basically together for someone, I got really inspired by my own just like pile of leftovers. And there's quite a bit of it. Not enough to do like one square is a different, like every square is a different color, but enough that it is real scrappy and really fun. So this is probably familiar to some of you because it's a very popular style of like scrappy blanket, but this is called The Coziest Memory. I'm going to leave a link to it down below. The Coziest Memory. It's also referred to as a Cozy Memories blanket. The person who wrote the pattern, it's for free on Ravelry. Like in her project page, pattern page, she's very specific to say like, this was not my original idea. Like I'm just putting these resources together, and she like credits the person who kind of like originally put this together. But it is, and you can see, actually this is a really great spot to be to like show you how this works. So essentially what you do is you start with one square, you cast on the number of stitches, and you knit. This is kind of like a mitered square, but not quite, because it's not a double decrease with like a center stitch, but it's close enough. So you knit and decrease in the center all the way until you have no more stitches basically, and then you bind off by just like pulling your yarn through the final stitch, and then that's it. And then what you do is you, like down here, you would cast on half the stitches and then pick up half the stitches, and then you would do the same thing. And then over here you would pick up half the stitches and then cast on half the stitches and then do the same thing. And then these squares, you're just picking up. You don't have to cast on anymore. So this is where I'm at. I hope that's all in frame. But this is where I'm at. The back honestly looks pretty cool too, with all the like little pickups. It's like a quilted kind of situation. And what's really nice about this is I am weaving in my ends as I go. So I'm using like basically the weave and Steven method, but not quite. And then I'm just like clipping my ends like that. So overall, this has been like, this is my new favorite square. Look how cute. And like I even ran out of yarn and started with just like a plain teal. And like you can, from far away, I feel like you probably can't even tell that I've done that. So it's just this like really gratifying, it's like throwing paint at a wall, but the knitting version of that. And it's been really soothing. So when I haven't been working on the Mr. Knit Along, this is what I've been working on, as well as my test knit socks. And this has just been like, I would knit on the Mystery Knit Along in the morning before work, and then I would pick this up at night as like this really nice, no thinking, except for picking a new color. And it's just been really great. So yeah, this is a good spot to show like how the picking up works. So you have like a larger number of stitches, and then as you decrease out, you'll get out to that like one stitch, and then you'll start over again. Like this is a self-striping one. These were socks that I made for like a cousin. These are from a colorwork sweater that I did. These are socks that I made for Monica. That's like my sock design that I did last year. There's just so many cozy memories in this blanket that is just delightful. So I right now have a 24-inch with my ChowGoo like interchangeable tips on here, but I did just buy fixed 24-inch circulars, so that I have just like blanket needles, so that I don't have to worry about like, where is that cord? Where are those needles? I just have it. And it's just going to be an ongoing project. I don't know that it's something that I'm going to share every time that I talk to you folks here on YouTube, because like this is like a week and a half of pretty like focused on the blanket knitting, because I was frustrated with the MKAL, so I was like, I'm just gonna knit on the blanket. But it doesn't mean that in future that I will necessarily have that much to share on it. So I think it's one of those things that like, as I have, I don't know, I feel like I'm a quarter of the way, half of the way, then I'll share, but it'll be like a slow update sort of situation. And that is it for what I've been knitting on, really. I think I'm going to take a moment here and chat about, because last podcast, it was like a Q&A, and someone asked like what my plans are for the rest of the year for knitting, and I answered truthfully in that moment, but turns out plans change. So I want to chat about like holiday knitting and stuff, and then that'll be it. We'll wrap it up there. If you're not into chatter, I'll see you when I see ya. But otherwise, let's tuck into some knitting, a beverage if you would like, and we'll chat. I think for my sit and chat project, I'm going to choose this blanket that I was just so fondly speaking about. And let's talk about, oh, that's not what I'm looking for. Where's my working yarn? There it is. I think I'm going to talk about gift knitting, I guess. This will be my third Christmas where I feel like my knitting is at a place where I can like gift things. I think that's correct. Yeah, last Christmas, definitely. The Christmas before that, I think so. Yeah, so the third Christmas. And I don't know what it is about gift knitting. I'm always like, oh, I'm not really going to do that. And then we get to around now and I go, oh, I really should do that. And I know that I'm going to get people who are going to say, well, just don't, right? Just don't do that if you don't want to do that. And I see that logic. I do. And I actually, believe it or not, last year sort of followed that, even though I knit a ton of gifts, in my mind, I was like, well, I'm only, what is happening here? There we go. In my head last year, I was like, I'm only going to knit for people if I want to knit for them. So I sort of like reframed it as like, I don't have to do this. I'm choosing to do this because it'll be fun or whatever. And I sort of have lost that thread this year because there have been a lot of babies in the family, my like Ontario family, and a lot of babies. And I have also kind of last minute decided that I'm going to go visit my family in Ontario in December. So I've sort of set myself up for this sort of reality of like, well, I'm going to visit. Everyone has had a baby or will be having a baby by the time that I'm there. I should probably make some baby knits. Only one person has requested these baby knits. So really, I only have one person that I should make their infant a sweater. And like a 6-month sweater is neither hard nor like long to knit, right? But it takes away from what I would rather be knitting, which is the whips that I've set aside in order to knit the MKAL, and now I'm disappointed about the MKAL. So I'm like, oh, those 3 weeks of monogamous MKAL knitting, I could have been knitting on these whips, and they would not be whips anymore, they would be FOs. And so I feel like I've like taken up some of my own knitting time, and as a result, I'm like, well, I don't want to give my knitting time to other people. And I'm just having like this internal battle of like, ugh, if I just hadn't have done the MKAL, which isn't fair to the MKAL. The MKAL didn't do anything to me, right? So yeah, so I'm having this like battle of like, is gift knitting even worth it? Yada, yada. And I don't know, maybe it's not worth it. And maybe I'm doing this because I want people to think, oh, how nice of you, you thought of us and you knit us this baby sweater or whatever. Like, and part of it is that, but like part of it is that I don't live there. So it would be nice to know that these like family members have like a piece of me. And then when I go visit, I can give it to them. And when I leave, that's fine. I don't know. It's a weird thing, gift knitting. So that is all to say that my rest of the year knitting plans have changed. I was like, I really want to finish what I have in the needles. And I definitely want to do a love note before the end of the year. I still want to do that love note, but whether or not it will be finished by the end of the year is another story altogether. A want and not a need or whatever. So yeah, I mean, I will be knitting 4 baby sweaters, 1 before the middle of November and 3 before the middle of December, because that's when I'm going to be in Ontario. And then the rest of my knitting is just sort of what it's going to be. I'll probably work on this blanket a lot. I'll probably knit my partner some Christmas socks. I'm wearing Christmas socks. Oh my gosh, the dog hair. That's actually ridiculous. I'm wearing Christmas socks right now. These I knit last year, and if you watch the podcast, you'll remember that the toe of these, one of them got like from my cat, and then they sat in a bin and weren't worn. And then this week I was like, you know what I could do? I could reknit the toe on that sock. And I'm really glad that I did because they're very comfortable. So I'll probably knit, I have a skein of self-striping Christmassy yarn, maybe knit my partner a pair of socks. But like, there's this concept that was also introduced to me but from B of the Maker Bee podcast. Thank you, B. You're making a cameo twice. But it's like, almost like the making year ends at the end of October in like this strange Twilight Zone sort of a way. I'm calling it the Twilight Zone. They did not call it that. But it just feels like this, like, it's not the end of the year. Like, actually, like, January 1st for me is the new year. But like, my making year almost feels like it always comes to an end short because I fall into this, like, you're either finishing the pile of whips that didn't get finished before the end of the year so you can start the year off fresh, or like this year I'll have an advent to open and I'll want to be doing stuff with that yarn. There's just like this momentum. It's almost like this strange, maybe I'm identifying what's been bothering me. It's like people talk about, oh, fall weather, this is knitting season. Like, this is what we wait for all year. We want to wear our knits. We want to be knitting during the fall, September, October, November. But by the time mid-October rolls around, I'm looking at the pile of things I haven't finished yet, and I'm looking at the things that I want to make for my family, and I'm going, there's not enough freaking time before December 25th. Where did all the time go? So I have this like idea that I should have all the time and all the excitement to knit all the fresh fall sweaters. And it's like, that doesn't exist right now. I don't have time for a fresh sweater. I have 3 sweaters on the needles and like 4 baby sweaters that I have to knit. So it's almost like this dissonance between like what I imagine for myself will be true during fall knitting season and then what is actually the reality. And like, I know, I hear you. Just start knitting your gifts earlier if you know that you're going to want to knit them for people. And maybe next year. But this year was not my year for that, and that's just what it is. And I'm lamenting. Okay, I'm lamenting. But yeah, I mean that's pretty much all I have to say about that. I don't know if you're a gift knitter or not. Some people only knit for other people, and I am really amazed by that. I don't ascribe to like the idea of selfish knitting, because if you're knitting for yourself, you're not being selfish. You just have a craft and you do things for yourself. Like, I don't see a problem with that. But yeah, I don't know. It's a strange thing having a craft that from the outside perspective, people like, you know, if you ask the average person, what do you think about when you think about someone that knits? And they're probably like, oh, like a grandma that knits their like grandkids' sweaters. You know, like it's almost expected that it's like this selfless act of like something you do for the people in your life versus something you do for yourself, to like, it's a mindfulness practice, or it's building your wardrobe, or it's whatever it is for you, right? It's just, it means something different to everyone. And I think what most folks' perspective from the outside in is that, well, obviously you're going to want to knit me this thing. And it's like, I have my own goals and aspirations and things. And I don't know if I'm making any sense. This is a lot of what the podcast turns into, is me just going, and then, and also, and did you ever think about it like this? That's also what my Instagram stories are. Thank you for putting up with me. I think I'm gonna leave it here. Like I say, I had no finished objects to really talk about, except for these socks, because they technically were unfinished for a whole year, and now they have a toe that works. So I guess I do have a finished object. And yeah, that's it from me. If you have some like, wow, the MKAL really was not for me this year feelings about it, or if it was also your first time participating, because it was my first time, like, did it do you dirty? Are you really excited that you did it? Are you gonna wear that shawl? Yeah, I'm curious. Okay. I think that's it. Yeah. Goodbye. That's how we're ending it.
That's how you end it?
Yep.
Okay, goodbye.
I don't have an ending.
You don't want to smash that like button and subscribe?
Smash that like button. Subscribe to this channel. I put out new videos when I feel like it. Is there anything you'd like to add?
No.
Okay. Okay. Do you want to do a video with me next time I post? Do you want to? There's been this like tag of like unpopular knitting opinions that people have been doing a video on frequently. And I feel like it would be really funny to like ask people for their unpopular knitting opinions and then have you sit with me while we go through them.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like an outsider's perspective.
Provide me beer and I'll do it.
Provide you beer?
See?
All right. We'll make it happen.